Okay, so let's get this out of the way first. The Seiko Speedtimer is probably the best chronograph Seiko makes right now. I'm sure you've seen it all over social media. It's super popular on Reddit, Instagram. It's become a modern classic, it's historically grounded, and it's very sought after. But after spending time with both of these, I honestly find myself liking this one a little bit more. This is the new Seiko SSB479. It could be because I'm still in the honeymoon phase with this watch. It's not as nearly as popular as the Speedtimer. In fact, I'm pretty sure most of you probably haven't even heard of it yet. And that's partly because it's freshly released in late 2025. But that's why I want to show you a few reasons why, at more than half the price, this one actually makes more sense. Let's first start with the obvious, the design. The Speedtimer isn't pure Seiko DNA. The white dial with black chronograph accents might not be groundbreaking, but it's a proven formula and a big part of what makes the watch instantly recognizable. I would even argue it's the element that helped make the Speedtimer internet famous. So there's definitely some Daytona energy here, but it feels less like a straight homage and more like a modern reinterpretation of Seiko's chronograph heritage. Now put it next to the SSB and this is where things get interesting. There's still a touch of 60s Daytona to it, but with a noticeable Speedmaster nostalgia. Just check out the new 2026 version and it looks exactly the same. The whole design leans more mid-century, slim bezel, domed crystal, applied logo. It is one of those watches you really have to experience in person. Photos honestly just don't capture how cool and high-end this feels. Where they diverge is the dial and crystal. The Speedtimer gives you sapphire, which is expected at any watch above $300. However, the SSB skips sapphire, which is a shame, but the raised hardlex bubble crystal adds character, wrapping the dial, adding depth, and still keeping excellent legibility, and in the same time keeping the price down. Shaping sapphire like this would be costly, so sticking with hardlex makes perfect sense. The dial itself has a glossy, almost enamel-like look that feels more premium than its price. But if I had to nitpick, the subdials are a little flat. Don't get me wrong, I still like them, they work, but a touch of more texture I think would have been nice. While the Speedtimer's dial look a little bit more modern, but the solar subdials can be a little bit distracting. The tiny date window throws off the symmetry, and I really wish at this point they'd do a version without it. Then you have that curved, almost ceramic looking bezel that really works with the dial and makes the whole watch look bigger. So design wise, the SSB leans into the retro vibe, and as a complete visual package, I think it just edges it out for me. When it comes to the wrist presence, these watches are actually closer than you think. The Speedtimer comes in at about 39mm wide, 45.5mm lug to lug, and around 13.3mm thick. It wears solid, slightly bulky, but very much like a modern tool chronograph. The SSB, on the other hand, kind of surprised me at 38.7mm wide and roughly 45mm lug to lug. It feels more faithful to vintage proportions. On the wrist, it actually seems a bit smaller than the Speedtimer, even though the numbers are almost the same. And yes, the crystal does make it look thick at around 12.8mm, but here's the trick. Once you ignore the bubble, the actual case underneath is closer to 8.5mm, which gives it a much slimmer visual profile. And then we get to the area where most of the time almost every Seiko disappoints, the bracelet. The Speedtimer bracelet is fully brushed, no frills, no polishing. It suits the watch perfectly, but it doesn't really excite. It does offer solid end links, and the clasp is miles ahead of the abysmal entry-level crap that Seiko offers. It's not perfect, but it's still my favorite Seiko bracelet. And while the SSB's bracelet definitely isn't on the same level as the Speedtimers, as you can see here, it's thicker and sturdier, I was actually pleasantly surprised for a cheap Seiko. The bracelet is way better than expected. The pattern fits the retro vibe perfectly. It comes with solid end links, drilled lugs, and a micro adjustment, even if it's just one position. And then you have the clasp, which feels really cheap. Definitely time for Seiko to improve their entry-level clasps. That said, I get the feeling that this watch would look even better on straps. Thankfully, Seiko went with the standard 20mm lock width, so options wouldn't be a problem here. So on the wrist, the Speedtimer feels solid and purposeful. Its bracelet is clearly better, but I still prefer how the SSB wears. It's flatter, lighter, and more relaxed, especially if you have smaller wrists. Now when it comes to movement, technically speaking, the Speedtimer wins. The V192 solar movement is accurate to plus minus 15 seconds per month, runs for 6 months on a full charge, and even gives you a power reserve indicator hidden in the sub-dial layout. It's a super efficient movement that is just simply hard to ignore. The SSB on the other hand uses a Mecha Quartz chronograph, and while it doesn't sound as sexy on paper because it's not mechanical or solar, it does get the job done. The classic pump style pushers feel crisp, and I can't have enough of that satisfying second-hand instant snapback. Given the accuracy quirks of Seiko's entry-level mechanical movements and the added cost of solar, I take the Quartz any day if it means better accuracy without driving up the price. And I forgot to mention, they both offer a chronograph function, but let's not kid ourselves, no one's timing anything with it anymore. And finally, the question that makes or breaks a watch for most people, the price. The Speedtimer comes in at around $725, and that's a tough sell. If you can find it somewhere on eBay or secondhand for closer to $500, then the pricing starts to make more sense. But the SSB, depending on where you shop, can come in at even half that price. I picked up mine from Joma Shop for around $300, which I'll have a link down in the description. And for a watch that looks this good and wears this well, the value is hard to ignore. So while the Speedtimer is probably the best Seiko chronograph, winning on specs across the board, the SSB479 I think is an incredible value for money watch. It's slimmer, a bit more vintage, more versatile, and frankly more fun to wear. And that's why it wins for me, but let me know down in the comments which one you prefer. What do you think about this new release from Seiko? And I'll catch you in the next one.